Hello and welcome to a special presentation from DETV News called Delaware Depths. As you may know, several school districts here in the first state will soon be asking its taxpayers to increase funding for the education of our children. We'll be bringing you detailed information about each of the district's plans, and in today's episode, we'll be talking with Red Clay Consolidated School District Superintendent Dr. Dorrell Green. But first, take a look at this informative video on the referendum produced by the district.
I'm Dr. Dorrell Green, Superintendent of Red Clay Schools. The future of our schools and the success of our students depend on our ability to unite. It's not only about education, it's about embracing life, pursuing continuous learning, and striving for a brighter future. Stand with us on Wednesday, February 28th. Together, we can build a better future where every student thrives with the resources they need to succeed.
Welcome back, and please welcome Dr. Green. Dr. Green, welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate your time.
Pleasure being here.
Thank you. So let's kick it right off. We want to know, why does Red Clay need to go into referendum at this time?
Well, it's been approximately 9 years since the district has gone out to our local tax base to ask for an increase in local revenue. And as we know in this day and age, we require funds to do the innovative and creative programs that we have going on throughout the district. So this is an opportunity for us to look at sustainability of existing programs, but more importantly, keep up with inflation, costs, and things of that nature to continue to run the innovative programming that we have throughout the district.
Understood. So what will this particular referendum support?
So it'll support everything from obviously increased salaries for our employees, which is obviously, we are a people business. Our educators drive the systems and the programs that we have, so that's an opportunity for us to remain competitive, but more importantly, looking at educational, extracurricular core programs for our students throughout the district. Everything from our earliest learners and our preschool programming through our students with disabilities, who we run programming up through the age of 22. So it covers that wide range, curriculum, co-curricular, extracurricular programs and activities across all of our schools throughout Red Clay.
And then is Red Clay particularly asking from its taxpayers?
So this will be a 3-year phase-in. So we're asking for 30 cents the first year of the referendum, 10 cents the second, and then 10 cents the third year. But this is also both a operating referendum as well as a capital expense referendum. So not only are we looking at operating expenses in terms of, again, salaries, program, curriculum, and instruction, but we're also looking for the investment within our facilities and our infrastructure. So we're going out for a capital referendum as well to look at much needed renovations and updates to over 29 schools throughout the district.
Got it. You said it's been 9 years since.
It has been 9 years since we've gone out to our local tax base, which I think shows that we're good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And in essence, we're only coming out because we have a true need. And we want our community, obviously, to support that. Come out on February 28th, which is the Wednesday, which is for the vote. But more importantly, again, it's not something that we're just haphazardly going out to ask our community. We know that, we want to be good stewards of those taxpayer dollars. And I think the district has demonstrated that with the fact that it's been 9 years since we've gone out to our local community to ask for this increase.
So it sounds like definitely a lot of research and thought has been put into what you're asking for the taxpayers, and this has been well thought out and researched prior to.
Yes, I mean, we've engaged the community. We know what our schools need. On the capital side of it, we've had to submit what is called a certificate of necessity to the Delaware Department of Education, which that is a 60-40 split. So the state has agreed to provide 60% for the capital upgrades that we're requesting. And for those members of our community, they can look and go on our website where there's a lot of information, but we've had detail what each building is going to receive in terms of capital improvements. And so the district has to come up with the 40% of the local side of that. Again, the state is supporting 60% of that from a capital improvement side of things.
Understood. Okay. And then, so why should someone, this next question is a very hot topic. Why should someone without any children in the schools support this referendum?
So our philosophy or mindset is if you live in Red Clay, support this referendum. Obviously, it's a value to your property tax. When folks want to move into communities or they want to think about where to move, the school system plays a very vital role or part in where we live. And so if you're a retiree, if you're someone, there's also tax credits for veterans and seniors within our community. But more importantly, schools are the lifeblood and the hub of many of our communities. So in essence, if you live in the district, supporting our schools as taxpayers will help support, again, property values, but also support the communities. As my grandmother would say, idle's mind is a devil's workshop.
There you go.
And so you don't want that middle schooler, that student who has nothing to do after school. So our goal through co-curricular, extracurricular activities is to keep them engaged. So if you live in the district, that support is keeping students, keeping the community engaged. If you have a grandchild, or if your children have gone through, or if you have a neighbor whose child is learning in the district, again, we talk about a viable community, really looking at how we support learners. If you have a student or someone who is learning in the district, there's a need to support. And then more importantly, businesses, community as a whole, if you know someone who works in the district, we ask for your support. And so if you live in the district, if you know someone who's learning in the district or someone who's working in the district, I think there's a reason to compel our community to come out to support this referendum.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Green. So the next question is, does the failure of the referendum in the Appoquinimink School District give you any pause?
Well, again, I think we serve different communities, but anytime you kind of learn from lessons, or there are lessons to be learned. But I think for our community to understand that we would have to make cuts, and we'd have to make substantial cuts as it relates to a failed referendum. And we would look anywhere between $9.5 to $10 million in terms of local budget cuts. And a lot of our programming can ill afford to be cut. And so, we don't want to lead with that, but we also need to be transparent that this referendum really is to sustain a lot of the programming that we have in the district. I think by far we are, as the largest, serving over 16,000 students throughout the district, or have various magnet programs. We serve as the authorizer. We're the only district that authorizes charter schools, that being Delaware Military Academy, Charter School of Wilmington. We have various magnet programs, Conrad Schools of Science, Cab Calloway School of the Arts. We support dual Spanish immersion, programming. So there's a lot of diversity within programming, expansion of our pre-K and early learning, again, autism programming. So we serve a wide need throughout the community. And so when we look at a failed referendum or not really getting the taxpayer support, that means cuts to program staff across the board. And we know we could ill afford to do that. We want to keep the momentum of having these innovative programs in place. So we're asking for our community to be in support for this referendum.
I know just seeing on social media, Dr. Green, there has been a lot of chatter about this, right, for referendums for all the different school districts and many different viewpoints. What I wanted to ask you is these informational meetings that the districts have been having, what's some of the feedback that you're getting from the community, from parents? And can you kind of summarize what you're getting from these meetings?
Well, at the end of the day, I'm a resident as well. So I have children in the district. I'm a Red Clay resident. Ultimately, as a taxpayer, they want to know what's the impact to them and their bottom line. How much is this increase? What sacrifices will they have to make in terms of increased taxes on their home? And so we look at helping folks and the community members to understand this is on their assessed value, not the market value of their home. So they can go on our website. They can go also to Newcastle County's website to find out the parcel search, to find out the assessed value. So we don't want families going out looking at Zillow or looking at these websites to see what the market value of this is what my home would sell for, so this is what my increased taxes are going to be. And they can plug that assessed value into a calculator, and it'll let them know what the annual increase, but also the monthly increase to their local back, so that they can make an informed decision about what that means for them and their household budgets. The other thing folks want to understand or know is what's the impact in terms of programming. What will they be getting from this referendum? And like I said, we look at it through an 85-15 lens. 85% of what we're asking is for sustainability, to increase the current level of programming that we have, whether that's mental health supports in schools, counseling supports, again, curriculum and instruction programming, co-curricular, extracurricular, career technical ed pathways. So again, depending on the constituent taxpayer, they want to know bottom line, what is this going to cost me? What does it mean to my household income and my budget? And then more importantly, what are we actually going to get for our students, for our community, for our schools? And so again, from an operating expense and a capital expense, they can go to look at what individual schools are going to receive in terms of capital improvements. And then more importantly, what kind of instruction or operating enhancements will come as a result of this referendum.
Understood. Thank you. You had just touched on this, and you bring me right into my next question. How does the county reassessment that's happening currently impact the referendum?
Yeah, so again, we're all going through this reassessment process. I think it can add to some mixed messaging because within the code, there's the notion that school boards can have a 10% threshold. Our goal as a district would be we will continue to secure the same level of local expenditures that we're getting as a result of our local share. And so when we're looking at the community and saying how reassessment, we would not necessarily increase our local revenue based on the reassessment. We would compel or recommend to our board that we draw upon the same level, regardless of reassessment, of local expense. So for example, we currently will pull, let's say, $84 million of local revenue. And so depending on the outcome of reassessment, we would want to draw on that same. We would not use reassessment and the referendum to kind of compound the local expenses on our taxpayer. We would probably look to either reduce the local tax rate as a result to make sure that we're drawing upon the same local revenue. So to keep it simple, we're not going to leverage reassessment as another means to increase revenue. That's why we're using a referendum process, which we feel is the purest form of democracy, right? So our taxpayers can actually go out, they can vote their conscience and see the immediate impact of that vote. And so we want to just give them the information so that they can make an informed decision with the goal of having them support this referendum.
Excellent, thank you. So what's at stake if this referendum is not successful?
And again, we're looking at substantial cuts. We would have to have cuts across the board. And again, the fact that we haven't gone out for 9 years is I guess, somewhat of a blessing and a curse, because folks would generally look at it, well, why can't you cut your way out of this? We have to keep up with inflation. We have to keep up with increased costs. On the capital side, to give you an example, if we don't receive these funds, we're looking at more deferred maintenance. So that only prolongs or pushes the issue further down the road, which then also increases the amount of costs that eventually will come to our local taxpayers and us as a community. So we want to avoid that. And again, be transparent about this is more about sustainability of existing programs, but will give us a cushion and an opportunity over the next 3 to 5 years. If we want to introduce some things new from an operating side, we could do so.
Understood. Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about the district's referendum track record so far?
So again, it's been since over 9 years, almost 10 years ago, a decade. The district, in essence, Red Clay was the subject of a previous litigation, which kind of has informed the way that we're going out to our community right now. But the district has been successful and has had a supportive community in the past. Whether that's building new schools, Cook being our latest or the newest school within the district, but also looking at creative and enhanced programs. Again, we serve magnet programs, again, charter school, we serve as charter authorizers. So again, from a opportunity, choice, diversity of programs, we have a supportive community and we look for and hope for the same coming out of this referendum.
Thank you. So my next question, if the referendum is cut, how will it impact education as a whole? You had touched on this, but can we go into a little deeper on that?
I mean, there's a lot of needs. I'm a firm believer our schools are microcosms of the communities that we serve. And, post-COVID, and when we looked at the impact of learning loss and how we're looking to accelerate learning, we need resources to do so. And so if we would have to make future cuts, that would only further exacerbate a lot of the needs that we currently seeing playing out in our schools. So the goal and the hope is, again, that we compel our community to continue to support the work so that we can keep progress and momentum moving forward and not have to look at cuts and not have to look at disruption, whether that would be in staffing, programs, across the board, because it would be a major impact and blow to the district should we not get the support. But we're comfortable, we're confident that our community sees what they're receiving. We're coming off a week, actually last evening at Goldie Beacom, where we host our middle school basketball championships, right? So to see families in a gymnasium really seeing their tax dollars at use, right? So parents don't have to go out to spend additional dollars for youth or travel league sports. They're getting that enrichment opportunity through their schools. So that's a good use of taxpayer dollars in display. Again, co-curricular, extracurricular activities. We're looking at things like expanding the International Baccalaureate program, at the John Dickinson School. So those, again, are opportunities for our taxpayers in the community to see that we want to continue the momentum in advanced programming and not have to cut our way out of a situation to solicit the taxpayer support.
Sure. So what I'm really hearing from you, Dr. Green, is this referendum affects more than the students. It's, it's about the students, but it really affects the students, the parents, the community, the administration, the teachers, and so on and so forth, after school care, things like that. So it's really such a wide range and has a ripple effect on so many different parts of the community.
It is. And again, like I said, our schools serve as hubs for the community. So this is truly, the students are the center of what we do and what we're about, but it takes adults, it takes supports, it takes community, partnerships. So, it will be an impact to the community, the broader community as a whole. So when we take that whole child, whole school, whole community approach, we will feel impacts across the board if we aren't successful. But again, our goal is to share this information. So we want to thank DETV for this opportunity to get the word out. February 28th, Wednesday, come out and support. Definitely want to give you a card. And again, if you live in the district,
this is my district.
If you have someone learning in the district, or if you work in the district, again, it's a need to be compelled to come out to support what we're doing.
Excellent. And if people want to learn about more information, can you give us the website to go to?
Yeah, so they can go to redclayschools.com/vote.
Okay.
And there's a referendum banner on there. They can get all the information about where to vote, the 15 polling places. They can get information on how to vote. Absentee ballots are also accepted. So all of that information, and then they can see which schools are getting what information. So there's a whole website dedicated to this information. They can also call 302-552-3700 to get information or get in contact with anyone who we can walk them through. And they can also submit their questions at info@redclayschools.de.us if they have questions, and someone will get back to them.
Sounds great. So again, the date one more time, February 28th, polls open at 7 a.m. and they close at 8 p.m.
Yes, Wednesday, February 28th, come out and vote for Red Clay's referendum. And again, we appreciate the community support and their level of engagement. We also have a whole list of future opportunities for the community to come out. We have several town halls that are listed, and so they can get all of that information on our website as well.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Green, it's been a pleasure having you. We appreciate your time. We know how busy you are, so thank you for stopping by here
Thank you, Matt,
at DETV.
again.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Best of luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Dr. Dorrell Green. Again, you can find all the information you need at redclayschools.com/vote. And again, that date is February 28th. I want to thank Dr. Green for being with us here at DETV for this first edition of Delaware Depths. We have much more coming up where we talk to other Delaware school districts that are up for referendum. We appreciate you joining us, and we will see you next time.
DETV has been Delaware's premium provider of creative digital and broadcasting solutions that bridges communities and connects people. We create great stories for all audiences. We deliver independent news throughout Delaware. We are digital platform innovators. And we develop marketing and sales solutions so you can stay connected to your audience. Now, why do we do what we do here on DETV? We do it because we care. So, keep watching and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Remember, DETV, online, on air, on time.
Hello and welcome to a special presentation from DETV News called Delaware Depths. As you may know, several school districts here in the first state will soon be asking its taxpayers to increase funding for the education of our children. We'll be bringing you detailed information about each of the district's plans, and in today's episode, we'll be talking with Brandywine School District Deputy Superintendent Dr. Lisa Lawson. But first, let's take a look at a video on the referendum produced by the district.
On February 13, 2024, the Brandywine School District will be asking voters in our community to support an operating referendum. This referendum is absolutely critical to continuing to meet the needs of our students, and it is important to be aware of what is at stake. If the referendum fails to pass, we face $6.5 million in cuts across our district, which will impact every aspect of the school day and the educational experience of over 10,400 students, from class sizes to instructional materials, staff and programs, to athletics, clubs, activities, and more. In the state of Delaware, school districts are required by law to get voters' approval to increase property taxes, known as a referendum. Brandywine last held a referendum in 2016, with the commitment it would last for 3 years. Property assessments have not been updated since 1983, so local district funding has not increased since the last referendum in 2016. It is hard to balance budgets for that long without additional funding, but through strong fiscal stewardship, federal assistance during COVID, and $16.8 million in grant writing, the Brandywine School District has been able to stretch the last referendum for an impressive 8 years. Brandywine School District has a long-standing district finance committee made up of community representatives along with members of the school board who monitor and provide oversight of district finances. In early September, this committee unanimously determined a referendum of 45 cents is needed in order to continue supporting our 16 schools. The school board agreed and voted unanimously to proceed with bringing the request to voters. In order to minimize the impact on Brandywine taxpayers, the request is to phase in this increase over 2 years, with 25 cents July 1st, 2024 and 20 cents July 1st, 2025. Based on the average assessed property value in the Brandywine School District, the increases would also phase in for $15.15 a month in the first year and $12.12 a month in the second year. Property reassessment is currently underway in Newcastle County for the first time in 40 years. While reassessment will update assessed values closer to market value, when completed in 2026, reassessment will not increase tax collections for the Brandywine School District because the district is required by law to reduce the tax rate to remain revenue neutral. Even though local district funding has not increased since 2016, inflation and the cost to maintain our essential programs, staff, and instructional support has increased considerably. This funding request focuses on maintaining critical programs and services for students and classrooms. Successfully passing on February 13th will allow the Brandywine School District to continue attracting and retaining high-quality educators, maintain the safety and security of our 16 campuses, repair and replace student computers and interactive classroom technology, continue the upkeep of our 16 buildings and grounds, covering 2.2 million square feet and 400 acres across the district, and continue the outstanding instructional and extracurricular programming offered throughout the Brandywine School District. Thank you for taking the time to understand why this upcoming vote is so important for our students and schools. We hope you will join us in supporting the Brandywine School District referendum on February 13th.
And welcome back. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Lawson. Dr. Lawson, thanks so much for being here today. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We know you're busy, so we appreciate having you here. I'll get right into it if that's okay. So why does your school district need to go to referendum at this time?
So the last time we asked our taxpayers to raise revenues for the school district was 2016. We promised at that time that we would stretch that referendum for 3 years, 4 if we could. Well, it's been 8 years. We believe we did an excellent job being fiscal stewards of the taxpayers' money. Certainly with 2020, we had COVID relief funds coming in. They are expiring at the end of August, and we are in deficit spending. So the time has come, and we need to go back out to the taxpayers.
So what will this referendum support?
This referendum in Brandywine is for operational expenses only. We are not seeking a capital referendum. We do not have major renovation projects or new buildings to build at this time. So we are simply seeking operational funds to continue the day-to-day operations that we are running in the Brandywine School District, as well as the programs that we have. We support athletics and extracurricular activities and clubs. Our visual and performing arts is alive and well. And so besides the employee costs of the folks that we have working with us in Brandywine, we need the day-to-day operations to continue as well.
Got it. Now, I want to make sure that our viewers understand the distinct difference between the two. Operational is what, and then I want to go into what capital is so that way they understand the two differences.
Sure. Operational referendums really are about paying your bills. Much like in your home, you have you pay for groceries, you have your gas bill, your electric bill, those kinds of things. It is your day-to-day operations. A capital referendum is really if you were doing a major renovation project on your home or building a new home. Those are considered more major, and we seek funding from the state for capital projects. So the state first has to acknowledge our project, approve a project, and then we would match the local share. Brandywine is not seeking any capital funds at this time. We actually just retired some debt, some capital. Not sure if taxpayers recognize that their taxes went down 2 cents because we had old bonds that had expired. So we are retiring debt over the next 6 years from expired bonds or old bonds. At this point, we're just seeking the operational expenses for the district.
Understood. Thank you for explaining that for our viewers. And frankly, what are you asking from the taxpayers?
We're asking for 45 cents. The district has an oversight committee, so to speak, made up of citizens who have expertise in finance that look at our books on a monthly basis. They spend hours poring over our budgets line by line, ensuring that we are spending the taxpayers' money in a responsible way, but also in full transparency. So in late 2023, they noticed that obviously that we were in deficit spending and that the COVID funds were going to expire in August of 2024. And so the need is 45 cents. And our district finance committee tried to look at the best way to do that, knowing that some of our taxpayers are just making ends meet. We understand that folks are on fixed incomes, and we try very hard to be responsible with the 45 cent ask. So instead of asking for the 45 cents all at once, knowing that we need to stretch this money over several years, we're asking for 25 cents in fiscal year 24, so that's coming up. This coming year, we would ask for 25 cents prior to reassessment happening, and then we would ask for 20 cents the following year.
Got it. Thank you. So another one, a hot question that comes up a lot, and I'm sure you get this quite often. Why should someone who doesn't have any children in schools or are sending their children to choose to send their children to private school, why should they support this referendum?
I think that's a good question. Public schools really are, in my view, part of the fabric of our communities. Good public schools raise property values, and they ensure strong communities. And Brandywine is a special and strong community. I've had the pleasure and privilege and opportunity to work for Brandywine for nearly a decade. And I can say that their mantra of 16 great schools and one strong community is a reality. So I would say to those families that not only will you benefit from the graduates who come out of our programs and graduate from our 3 high schools, because another thing you find with Brandywine is those people come back to the community after they graduate from colleges or university, and they start families there. You wouldn't believe the number of educators that we have in our district who grew up in Brandywine, went to schools and were educated by Brandywine School District, went and obtained a degree, and then came back to live and work there and grow their families there. So we believe that it benefits everyone in the community to make sure that our public schools are strong and that we have what we need to offer the best possible programming. The other piece that I would say is we open our facilities to anyone who would like to use them. Many of our private schools that reside in our district, St. Mary Magdalene, IHM, they use our gyms for basketball practice. We have our 3 pools are open to clubs, local clubs. The Wilmington Aquatic Club is one that utilizes our facilities all the time. So even though they're not necessarily sending their children there, they are benefiting from our property, our facilities, our grounds. If you think about the Brandywine Warriors, Neiman's Little League, Tallyville Softball, Brandywine Little League, those are all our properties, and those are all our partners that we cherish those partnerships. So I do believe that an entire community benefits from good, strong public schools.
In your answer just now, you've mentioned property a couple times, so I want to jump to that. How does this county reassessment that's happening right now impact the referendum?
The simple answer is that it doesn't. The money that we're collecting now, the revenue that we get from the 2016 year, remember, we haven't raised revenue since 2016 because we're not permitted to do that until we go to referendum. The money that we're collecting now will be the same amount of money that we collect after reassessment. It was pretty clear in the legislation when there was a vote to finally go to reassessment after 40 years in Delaware that we haven't had property reassessments, but the promise was revenue neutral. So the money that we're collecting now will be the same amount of money that we're collecting after reassessment. And folks say to us, and we've had 3 town halls and multiple community meetings. Well, how can that be? If my property is assessed higher and I end up having to be one of the ones that pay more, how then will individually that be revenue neutral? Well, while we can't speak to individual homes because we're not sure who will be assessed at a higher rate versus a lower rate, the county's giving us some generalities that a third of the people will pay more, a third will pay about the same, and a third will pay less. But the bottom line for the Brandywine School District is the amount of revenue that we take in must be the same. So we're going to need to roll the tax rate backwards, assuming that right now, the average property in Brandywine is assessed at $72,701. That may be a shocking number and it may seem implausible, but it is true. And so even if that $72,000 of average assessed value increases, we're going to need to roll that tax rate back to collect the same amount of money.
Understood. Thank you. So you had mentioned town hall and community meetings that have held. Can you give us a consensus of what happens at those meetings, and then what is the feedback that you're getting from parents, from community members at those town halls?
Yes. So we've had 3 so far, and we try to advertise them widely. I will say in 2024, to choose the one media source that everyone is using, you simply cannot. So we have been on social media platforms. We have been engaging with your network, WDEL, Delaware Online. We're trying to hit the major networks that folks in this community listen to and our community listen to. We've also been out to civic associations. We've contacted every local civic association that resides within the Brandywine School District. In fact, we just presented to the combined citizens of Brandywine 100 last night. Our 3 town halls have been open to the public completely. Anyone could come. We tried to widely advertise those as well. We have been to faith-based organizations. We have been to all PTAs and PTOs for our school district, and we continue to reach out and offer our presentation or our services to anyone who would like to learn more factual information about the referendum. That is our job, and our role is to widely spread the facts in terms of what we're asking our community.
So you had mentioned news organizations, and a hot news topic that's been throughout the state is the failure of the referendum in Appoquinimink. And I want to know, does that give you pause?
Yes, we were very disappointed to see that occur in our sister district. We do all support one another, and it's unfortunate that that occurred for them. So it does. We tried to learn lessons from what actually occurred in Appoquinimink. So just listening to information from social media or reading that information and listening to the folks who live there. I actually grew up there personally, and my family still lives there. So trying to connect and learn from any perhaps pitfalls or missteps that may have been made, or if folks felt like there wasn't enough information, or again, just try to do our best in making sure that our community knows exactly what we're asking for and why, and that our finances and the work that we've been doing is wide open for anyone to come to the monthly finance meetings and that oversight committee that our citizens have been attending and running for several months now. So again, we're sorry for Appoquinimink, and we certainly hope that Red Clay and Colonial are successful as we hope to be.
Thank you, Doctor. And so I want to ask, what is at stake for Brandywine if it's not successful, the referendum?
Well, because of the referendum cycle in Delaware, in other words, it isn't a cycle you can get yourself out of. So our charge, if it doesn't pass, we will be going back out as quickly as we can. The bottom line is we need $6.5 million to make ends meet for next year. And so we will likely be asking our taxpayers again to approve the 45-cent ask. If it fails a second time, we will need to look for $6.5 million of cuts, which is approximately 8.4% across the board. Unfortunately for us, because we're a people business, that's going to be over 100 positions that will need to be cut. Employee costs are the most significant aspect of our operational budget. So we will be cutting athletics, visual and performing arts, and programming, but we also will need to tell over 100 members of our family that they don't have a position with us next year.
We mentioned this in each of these episodes, and I think it's worth mentioning again that, you had mentioned that obviously the students are the heart of this referendum, right? And that's why you're doing this, yes, for to better the students. But there really is a ripple effect throughout the community, as you mentioned, right? Can you speak to that a little bit more about how, it's about the students, but also, athletics, arts programs, and then the teachers and administration, if you have to cut positions, how that would affect the overall district?
Sure. And I think from the student perspective, it might be easiest to explain my experience as a student. I actually grew up in the Appoquinimink School District, and we were facing a referendum when I was in high school. I actually remember, as part of English class, learning about referenda in Delaware, trying to understand how local taxpayers had to vote to raise school taxes in order to get what we needed, and literally carrying signs that indicated, please vote yes, and standing out on Main Street as cars drove by, trying to get folks to understand how important it was to us as students. Athletics were at stake, as well as clubs and extracurricular activities. So you are absolutely right that the students are first and foremost. You would actually be impressed at our seniors from Mount Pleasant, Concord, and Brandywine High School, and the active role they're taking in trying to get this referendum passed for their benefit and the benefit of their peers that follow them. But yes, there is a ripple effect on the system as a whole, because again, we are a people business and employees are the heart of what we do. And so the cuts would be across all facets of programming and also employee groups. So no one would be untouched. Administrators would be cut, school nutrition, custodial maintenance, teachers, paraprofessionals, across the board.
Thank you. And finally, we want to ask the date and where people can find more information about the referendum.
Our date is February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day. So we hope that our message that our children and our families and our staff are the heartbeat of what we do. And so right before Valentine's Day, we hope that our community will support this referendum on February 13th. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and we have voting at every single one of our schools except for Harlan, but also the Claymont Public Library.
And a couple other pieces of information I want to get out there to our viewers. You do not have to be a homeowner to vote.
That is correct. You can rent property. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then also you do not have to go to the polling place into which you would vote in a regular presidential or local election. Is that correct? That's
correct. And you don't have to be a registered voter either. You just need to be a Delaware U.S. citizen and bring your proof of identity with you.
Excellent. That's good information to know. So you make it easy for them to get out there and vote. Excellent. So the date one more time, February 13th. And can you give us the
13th.
website where we can find some more information?
Absolutely. brandywineschools.org/referendum. We have presentations, videos. If you'd like to request a presentation or a consultant to come, we are more than willing to do that.
Excellent. Dr. Lawson, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, and best of luck to you on February 13th.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Dr. Lawson and the Brandywine School District for joining us today at DETV for our program, Delaware Depths. Join us again for our next episode where we talk with even more school districts around the first state about the referendums. Thank you again for joining us. I'm Matt Ford. We'll see you again next time.
How did DETV start and how did you get here?
DETV started approximately 10 years ago in the basement of my home. I had an idea to show people of color doing great things, but what happened was I got to the point that I said, I'm gonna just show people all together doing great things. The motto and the moral was to bring people together instead of using media to rip people apart. And doing that, you know, I just did a lot of hard work, a lot of free stuff, a lot of things of just showing people being themselves. I figured that media, and I saw that media wasn't doing that, so I just decided to give it a shot, not knowing that it would bring me to where I am today. I had a great journey doing it, met some amazing people, did some amazing things, worked on some amazing projects, you know, and with just a lot of hard work and a bunch of sacrifice, I'm here today. I done worked on everyone's campaign in the state of Delaware, and now, you know, I'm just doing what I do and doing it with friends. My biggest accomplishment right now would have to be this, hands down, without a doubt. We want to make sure that we inform the community wholeheartedly. So again, they can have all the information that they need. For more information, you can find us at detvch.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook under DETV. Be sure to check us out. Tell me what you think.
Hello and welcome to a special presentation from DETV News called Delaware Depths. As you may know, several school districts here in the first state will soon be asking its taxpayers to increase funding for the education of our children. We'll be bringing you detailed information about each of the district's plans, and in today's episode, we'll be talking with Brandywine School District Deputy Superintendent Dr. Lisa Lawson. But first, let's take a look at a video on the referendum produced by the district.
Take a good look at just some of the reasons why the Colonial School District is asking residents to support a referendum on February 29th. No games here, just the facts. Every school is in need of an upgrade, be it large or small. Playground equipment is broken and in many cases beyond repair. On a rainy day, schools like Carey Downey become flood zones, while the tennis courts at William Penn are shut down because students and residents just can't play safely here anymore. And that's just a glimpse of what needs to be replaced or repaired.
So it's time. And this is our tagline for this referendum. We know our kids deserve this.
The capital ask is to make much-needed improvements at schools across the district, as well as to replace William Penn's aging stadium with a new athletic and event complex like other nearby districts already have.
Artist of this generation. Nick Niche, a pop artist with soul influences,
The district is also seeking funds through an operating referendum to continue supporting key investments and programmings that meet the needs of our students and community. This proposed tax increase would be phased in over a period of 3 years, totaling 40 cents. Falcon reminds residents that Colonial has been fiscally responsible over the last 7 years by being able to secure $27 million in outside funding by applying for grants and special programs to support schools, and that Colonial has the lowest tax rate in Newcastle County. She says it's equally important to remember the state approves $70 million, or 60% of the funding needed to make capital improvements. But
the catch is that Colonial taxpayers have to agree to pay the remaining 40%, which is just under $50 million. If we do not, if the Colonial community decides not to approve this request, the state will reallocate that $70 million somewhere else.
I have grandchildren, great-grandchildren, anything that helps the schools do better, I'm there.
81-year-old Vaughn Hilton has lived in the district for 14 years. She's aware seniors like herself can apply for a school tax credit application by calling the county at area code 302-395-5520. As for what others have to say,
I don't think they're asking for enough. I think our district desperately needs money. I think we need the athletic field. It's a lot of money for it, but I think it's important.
It's time. It's time for Colonial to catch up with the rest of the school districts in Newcastle County. We've been running behind for a long time. And if we want to encourage our students to stay here, we need to give them something to dream.
Now, don't forget to save the date. The referendum will be held on February 29th. For information about polling places or any details you may want about the referendum itself, head to our website at www.colonialschooldistrict.org. That's it for this edition of Keeping Up with Colonial. I'm Lauren Wilson, your Public Information Officer for the Colonial School District.
Welcome back, and joining me now is Superintendent of Colonial School District, Dr. Jeffrey Menzer. Thank you so much for being with us, Doctor. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, absolutely. So I want to get right to it. So why does your district need to go into referendum at this current time?
You know, when you see our campaign out there, it's time. It's been 7 years since our last operating referendum, and it has been more than 7 years that the Colonial School District has sought a capital tax increase for our major capital projects. So it's time. We need to upgrade and improve our facilities, as well as continue to maintain the programming that we have for students and families.
So, Doctor, what will this particular referendum support? If you can go into that a bit for our audience.
So we have two referendum requests. We have a capital and an operating. The capital is for about $122 million worth of projects, of which 60% of that will be picked up by the state. Our local tax property tax will pick up hopefully the 40%. And those projects include exterior improvements and safety improvements, like our driveways, our parking lots, our roofs, our secure vestibules, our athletic complexes for middle and high school, as well as our playgrounds for all our elementary schools. Really things that have gone untouched from a major capital work space. It's been the average age of our buildings is 60 years old, and if you saw in some of the video there, the playground equipment looks like it could have been around that time when the schools first opened. So it's time to give them a little touch up, as well as William Penn High School's athletic and event complex. It's a big part of the capital. Then we also have an operating request, which is to allow us to continue to do the work that we're doing with students and families. We were fortunate in 2017, the public approved an operating referendum. It was designed to last for 3 to 5 years. We're now 7 years out. We feel like we've been good stewards with that operating money, and we're now asking the public to continue to support us so we can build off of that momentum and continue to improve.
Sure. So speaking of the public leads me into my next question. What are you, Doctor, asking of the taxpayers?
So the operating increase, we're asking, it's going to be a 3-year phase in. The first year will be a 25 cent, and then it'll be a 10 cent, and then a 5 cent. So all told, it'll come to 40 cents after that third year, or at that third year. And in the capital, we're seeking 40% of 122 million. So roughly $50 million of support from the community would be paid out over the life of the bonds for that work.
So my next question is a little bit of a hot topic, and I'm sure you hear this a lot. If someone does not have children, why should they support this referendum?
So this is a really basic answer, and this goes to any school district in the state of Delaware or the country. A public education system is an important fabric of our communities and society. And whether you have students in the schools or not, you are impacted both by the quality of the graduates that come out of those schools who have become productive citizens, workers, neighbors, friends, colleagues, educated workforce. And in Colonial is a really unique community. There's a lot of pride in Colonial. A lot of families are still there. They're proud graduates from, you name it, they're out there. I mean, on Facebook right now, if you look, you see there's 590 people doing a roll call of what they've done since they've graduated. And so that thing keeps growing and growing every day. So for us, it's also about pride in our facilities, pride in our programming, and really the power of we, which has been our mantra for the last several years.
Yes. So another hot topic that's been in the news lately, the failure of the referendum in the Appoquinimink School District. Does that give you particular pause, Doctor?
Yeah, anytime a community speaks out against a public school system, I think that definitely gives me pause. But it also, they're a different community where they're growing by leaps and bounds. Colonial is not growing by leaps and bounds. There's no huge developments. There's no land to develop 700 home communities like on a weekly basis, which is what Appo is experiencing. So their community experience is different than ours. And so what we'll learn from their experience, we know we want to make sure we're being responsive to our community. And that's something we learned in 2017. We went out to a referendum in February and it didn't pass. And then we had to go back in June, and then that did ultimately pass. But during that process, we learned the community didn't want us just to come to them when we needed money. They wanted us to be responsive. They wanted to be heard. And so since 2017, the power of we has evolved to being that vehicle so that we're being responsive to our students and staff and our families' needs and providing high quality programming across the board, whether it's in the classroom, on the playing fields, in the club spaces, you name it. That's really what we've been about. So those are the things we look for and watch when other districts are going out for referendum.
So speaking of all the districts that are going out for referendum coming up in the next couple of days and weeks and months here, can you speak about, I'm sure you've been having a lot of informational meetings and informational sessions to let the community know what the referendum is all about. Can you give us a sort of a pulse of what you're seeing, what you're hearing from the community, from parents, just to kind of let us know how they're feeling?
So we had a public forum in the beginning of January, and then we also just had a virtual Q&A actually Wednesday evening, and we're having another public forum in February. And there's a couple of the trends are, you're asking us for money, but your test scores are low. And that's one that we have to address. And the other really big one in our referendum is people are having a hard time wrapping their heads around the William Penn complex and it being the larger part of the capital ask, and they come back to, what about the programming? What about the classrooms at William Penn? So those are the two that kind of continue to swirl around. And then, so that's what we're hearing. In terms of the state assessment data that's published on a regular basis on the report card, it is important, don't get me wrong, in any way, shape, or form, but a test score doesn't define a student, and it doesn't define their success in the future or their outcomes. If we look at some of our students from our class of 2023, we just pulled 5 students out. Their GPAs run the gamut from 1.97 to 3.5. 3.5 student that has 4s in their entire existence of state testing. Another 3.4 student that has 3s. Another 3.5 student that has 2s and 3s. A 1.9 student had all 2s and 1, had all 4s. So a lower GPA student had higher scores, a higher student had lower scores. the test doesn't define the outcome at the end. All those individuals are reported to be going off to four-year colleges and doing great things, we hope, in the future. So really for us, the test score is one measure of student success that we value, but it's not defining our students and their opportunities that are ahead of them. So that's our answer. It's not like uber technical and people are like, well, what about the test scores? Well, yes, but it's more than just a test score. And then in terms of the William Penn complex, you have to appreciate William Penn. It was built in the late 60s, early 70s. Those fields are the same fields. That football stadium in the back, Bill Cole Stadium, is the same stadium, upgraded a little bit here and there. And while our facilities and maintenance people have diligently addressed it, it's time to upgrade. I mean, and when you think about it, the elementary schools are getting new playgrounds. That's their exterior space where they experience recess in the air, outside. Middle schools, their athletic facilities, which are just baseball, softball, and track and sports fields, they're getting upgraded. William Penn just happens to be the only high school in the district. It's big, and there's a lot going on out there. So it is going to be more money. We're not trying to hide that fact, and we're not shy about it. And not all the money at William Penn is going to the fields. There's a $10 million roof project. There's several other secure entrance features. So that's where people are really getting a little bit hung up. And then they want to know, well, what about what's going on in William Penn? I have a list of 25 investments in the last 10 years that have happened inside William Penn for academics. Culinary program, Penn Farm, you name it. I could run down the list of, if I took the same sheet out for athletics, it would be a blank sheet of paper. Because in that 10 years, we've not made any significant investments in our athletic facilities. So we've been committed to the academic experience. It's now time for us to address the athletic experience, because those students deserve it, just like an elementary school student deserves an awesome playground.
Sure. No, thank you. So, Doctor, again, another tough question. What is at stake if this referendum is not successful?
That's actually a tough question, because there's so much on the table. Right now, what's at stake in the Capitol, there's $78 million on the table because the state agrees with us. Those capital projects need to happen. So that's at stake, because if we don't get the local match, we lose that. Like, we don't get it. That goes to some other projects. So to me, that's a big factor. And then in terms of the operating ask, if our community and our families are satisfied and are appreciating what they're getting from Colonial, we're doing that right now because in 2017, they gave us the money to do that. If they want us to continue to do what we're doing, provide the programming we're providing, and to keep working hard for their children, the operating ask is what we need. And that's what's at stake, is what we're offering now, being able to maintain that high level of quality across the board, whether it's from transportation, nutrition services, facilities, classroom experience, you name it. A human being answers the phone when you call and there's a call back, like all those things that matter to families around a large organization. I think that's all at stake.
So speaking of what's at stake, when we think about referendums, obviously the students are first and foremost. Always what we're, but there is a ripple effect here, right? It's affecting parents, it's affecting the students, it's affecting the community as a whole. You had mentioned athletics, playgrounds. It's really, the student is at the heart of it, but it really does have that ripple effect to affect so much greater parts of the community.
We do believe that our school system in Colonial is the fabric. It's the fabric that holds the community together. And we provide opportunities for families and students, primarily our students, with after school, during the day, extracurriculars in the evenings, on the weekends. Those experiences that draw families and the community together to celebrate students' academic and extracurricular success, whether it's on the playing field or in the art room, it doesn't matter. Like, there are so many inherently great things that come out of a strong school system that a community benefit from. Going to a winter Christmas concert, or going to a ball game down the street, or walking over to the track at the middle school because you want to take a couple laps around for yourself. Like right now, you can't do that. So it's more than just the one the student. It's everything in the community, and we believe that. And we feel like Colonial Nation deserves better and is going to get more with this referendum, and it's time.
Great. So, Doctor, I want to ask you a little bit about the county reassessment that's currently happening. And how does that county reassessment impact the referendum as a whole?
Other than that, it's distracting folks from thinking that it's like a con job or we're going to get more money out of this because of this, and we're not going to vote yes because you're going to get more money. Like that to me is like a distraction. Outside of that, it has zero impact on the referendum in terms of dollars and cents, because according to the way this is going to happen, it's revenue neutral for us. We can only get the same amount of money from the tax base that we get now. We have to change the rate to match what we're to collect. So if we're making 10 million now, after the reassessment, we can only get 10 million. So there's no it's revenue neutral for the district once the property reassessment goes on. Even if their property assessed value goes up, we still only get the same amount. We can't take more. So the hype around that, and it is scary because I'm a property owner and I've seen it, it's in Kent and Sussex, gets in the way of people wanting to raise their taxes because their property value is going to go up. So it's a bit of a challenge, and it is one of the third threads that does pop up every now and again in our public comments and questions.
Thank you. I want to ask you also, Doctor, and you touched on this earlier in our conversation, what is your district's referendum track record?
So we have been, I've been in the district for 33 years, and I've been involved in a handful of referendums. In my earlier career, it was hit or miss, like an operating would pass, a capital wouldn't, 2 operating questions, a capital ask. But in the most recent history, in 2013, we went out for an operating, and it didn't pass the first time. We had to go back a second time. As I said, in 2017, we went out for an operating and a small capital for secure entrances, which both were voted down. We came back only with an operating in June, and it passed. We learned a lot. We like I said, that last one in 2017, we learned a lot. It helped us open our eyes to understand what it means to be a district that's responsive to the community, be there for the community, and provide a high quality educational experience. So we are hoping that this time, February 29th, yes, leap year, hopefully only every 4 years you'll be hearing about us, a little get a little something to stick in there. We want people to leap to the polls for Colonial on February 29th.
Leap to the polls, I like that.
There you go.
Speaking of, before we wrap up, can you repeat the date and where we can find more information?
Sure, you can go to colonialschooldistrict.org website. There's a referendum tab right on the front, right on the right-hand side. One-stop shop of every single piece of information you need, from how each building is going to be impacted to the polling sites and the locations. We have 6 schools that are polling sites, and there are other polling sites in the community set by the Department of Elections. The polling place opened at 7 and closed at 8 p.m.
Excellent. And Doctor, before we let you go again, I want to remind people, I think this is important for our viewers to know, you don't have to be a homeowner to vote.
Yeah, the critical thing is you need to be a resident. And all you have to do is provide proof of residency. While there's photo ID is one of them, there are other pieces of documentation you can bring if you don't have them to prove your residency. So that's a very important piece. And you don't have to be a registered voter. Okay. And one of the really confusing things, and I'm glad you brought that up, is people often think they have to go to their polling place when they were voting the regular elections. You can go to any polling place.
Good information.
So, if it's closest to your job, your daycare, your drop-offs, your pickups, you can go to any of those polling places, and as long as you have the appropriate documentation to prove you're a resident, you're good to go.
Make it super easy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wonderful. Dr. Menzer, it's very nice to have you on the show. We appreciate your time. We know it's a busy time of year for you, so we appreciate you stopping by here at DETV.
No, thank you for having me. Great experience. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So leap to the polls on February 29th.
For Colonial.
All right, for Colonial, you got it. Our thanks to Dr. Menzer. We appreciate his time. And again, February 29th is the date for Colonial School District. They encourage you to head to the polls on that day. Again, our thanks to Colonial, and we will see you again on the next episode of Delaware Depth.